It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Reverend Joseph Matzner. We're here in your beautiful home in Johannesburg. And Joseph, you were born in Strasbourg.
I was born in Strasbourg. I had 6 siblings. I was born in 1935. And there's only one sister left in New York, an older sister. I'd like to say something which everybody knows, and that is that the French story was the last one to be known in the world. And there is an avalanche of videos that appear now on YouTube and elsewhere. For some reason or other, France was ignored because maybe the French language was not the most popular language in the world, a beautiful language, but it seems that the English overtook, America overtook, Israel overtook. So the French story, the French episode of the war only came out in the past 20 years, but actually the real avalanche of French stories that come out, and people come out. And there's a number of reasons, because I always think, as a child I already knew, that the French culture was too demanding, and it was not the most popular thing to be Jewish, and everybody, except the Polish Jews perhaps, wanted to play a very low key, as low as possible, in order to be positive. All French Jews, whether the émigrés, whether coming from elsewhere, or the Alsace-Lorraine Jews, everybody seemed to have played deliberately a very low key, and this is probably why the story is not so well known. And unfortunately, the downside of this lack of speaking or writing about it is the cause of lots of lost information. In my case, I was taken away. That is, taken away into hiding. I was 6. I'm not quite sure exactly 6 and a half, probably 6. And although I had 1 year of schooling and I was very good at reading and writing, I'd forgotten everything. I thought I had forgotten Yiddish, which my parents always talked to. I had forgotten all the tools that feed memory, especially speech and writing. The effect of the convent where I was for a long time was oblivion, and I could say almost total isolation. Isolation is even a nice word, I would say solitude. I had no idea, I suppose like many of the other, apparently there were 6 boys amongst about 200 Christian boys in that convent in Lourdes in the Pyrenees Mountains. And of course we were all incognito. So the state of incognito for so long was a huge tragedy, and it took all those who had the same fate as me. It really took us back to childhood. It was very difficult to face the world because of the solitude. The immense, incredible solitude. I was absolutely neglected by the monks and and I had to struggle eventually to find my bed. It was a huge dormitory of about 100 beds, and every night was a nightmare just to go and sleep. And I can't remember me not dreaming every night and waking up in a trance. I'd forgot, there was no connection. Those people who started the hidden adventure, if they were with the family, at least they got a bit of love and that's something to hold on and to develop from. I virtually had virtually nothing at all. I don't know dates anymore, I don't know, I haven't got much details, but eventually, I think it was in late 44, I was taken in by a Catholic family. And that family just adored me. And that it was in a small place called Naïs, N-A-Y-E-S. And I've got memories of the streets of Naïs, of the castle there, of the Foreign Legion was situated there. So I remember the Legionnaire and all that. I observed everything. It was a kind of a compensation for my lack of speech, my lack of knowledge, but I was a good observer, and I had a good memory, and I think that kept my, how shall I say, my intelligence, my basic intelligence going. Because I was keen to observe all the time. Took in lots of pictures. Yeah, why do I tell you all this? Yes, in my case, it was a total solitude, and very often I was jealous of those hidden children who had the good luck of being hidden on a farm with a family and things like that. And it was not to be my fate. I had a certain amount of popularity in that convent in Lourdes, and that was my ability to sing, my singing ability, and I was a solo. And I remember all the songs that I learned there. So a song, it's all irrelevant information, but what I think is important to me is the struggle after the war, to face a functional world, a world that gave no impression that anything ever happened. That was the tragedy of France. The population went to work, went to have to go to the bars, music, dancing, sports events were so magnificent, and they were almost daily, at least weekly. I'm talking about the place called Périgueux. It was a very peaceful place. It was already a biggish town, very pleasant town, and I could not understand where I came from. I came from the moon or and to see the pleasure that the average person had on a daily basis, and the friendliness and goodness and all that, it was too much. It was just too much for me to understand. So for a long time there was a struggle. I don't know how other boys felt. I think I became a kind of psychologist. I was my own psychologist. Later on, when I had, I shouldn't say the good luck, when I was able to read and I was avid of books, my favorite subject was geography, because geography is neutral. I loved maps. At school I was excellent. I could draw every country off by heart. I knew all the rivers. The world without people, rivers, mountains, hills, areas, climate. I was an expert. They used to call me le géographe, the geographer. Later on, I discovered the yeshivish world, which was a huge struggle for me. Dr. Glassman, it's quite amazing that yesterday I opened my phone and I saw the yeshiva. I did not call for it. I saw the yeshiva in Aix-les-Bains. And I saw the baths, the sulfur baths in Aix-les-Bains. And I saw the mountains. For me, all that was a carte postale, a picture, the beauty of the area. I couldn't understand what brought it, and now you appear on the scene, and Aix-les-Bains was a yeshiva. That yeshiva was meant to have been opened before the war, but the Rosh Yeshiva was the youngest pupil of the Chofetz Chaim. He had to go underground. First he tried to join the army. I don't know the full story. But after the yeshiva, he and Rabbi Weil from Alsace-Lorraine, they opened up that yeshiva in Aix-les-Bains, which is in southeastern France. And that yeshiva still exists. That yeshiva began, I was the second generation in the yeshiva, and I had the good fortune to see hundreds and hundreds of survivors, mostly orphans, Yiddish speaking, Polish speaking, Russian speaking. And I listened to their stories with such avidity, with such, and I felt, and then I got an idea of the incredible heroism of the Jewish people. And it appeared to me now that the non-Jewish world, I'm trying to be positive, Dr. Glassman, I realized that there was something in the Jewish, I was still young, I was only 12, listening to those people which actually stayed in Aix-les-Bains for a short while, mostly a year. And my Yiddish came back, and they learned the Gemara there in Yiddish. It was so refreshing. It was the old world coming to life again. The years after the war, till about the latest 48, I would say 46, 48 in Aix-les-Bains, was a historical parade. The Jews brought this town Aix-les-Bains to life. They totally, there were weddings in the streets. There were people that the French called refugees, but those refugees had more life in them than the locals. And the locals used to say, on croyait que vous étiez tous morts, we thought you were all dead. And they saw all those weddings taking place. It's unforgettable, that's unforgettable. The life of those so-called refugees, they were heroes, not refugees, was supra-historical. It is something that is such a pity that it is hardly mentioned in the books. I'm sure it'll have to surface again sooner or later, because that little town Aix-les-Bains became the place where real history unfolded, and only for a short while. I'll never forget some of the Gedolim from Lithuania who had lost their family. As a matter of fact, the first director of the yeshiva was almost a makeshift yeshiva from the point of view of, how would you say, of food-wise, and so there was a shortage of everything. But we didn't feel it because, as they say in French, la vie me pousse, life is pushing. And so there were things that we saw things in front of us on a daily basis which were greater than food, greater than clothing, greater than everything else. So the French government, I think that was the law, for any institution had to have a director, un directeur. So the man who became the director of the yeshiva of Aix-les-Bains, it was the yeshiva, was Monsieur Label. We called him Le Bel. Le Bel means the beautiful one, or le beau, Le Bel, but Label, Le Bel. He was a big Talmud Chochem, and he was one of the great businessmen. I don't know exactly what he did. And he had lost his entire family, his wife, and he was one of the first weddings that took place in the yeshiva. He married a young girl, a French girl, a Jewish girl, naturally, and the celebrations were so overwhelming that only a poet could describe those things. And then
your family.
Yeah, my family.
Can I just ask, do you remember other important Rabbonim or...
I'm talking about now Rabbi Rothenberg.
Or any Rabbonim that came to the yeshiva. Do you remember any of the Rabbonim?
The first person I met when I came to the yeshiva, I was only 11, was the famous Rabbi Pogromansky, Motel Pogromansky. He was a very quiet man, a great Talmid Chochem, a great thinker. And when he came to Aix-les-Bains, he was already not so well, but I didn't know that. And he called me and he gave me a blessing. And but those years with all the tremendous visions I saw, I mean, vivid sights that I saw of people in the decor of Aix-les-Bains was surreal, totally surreal. And when they left all those people, I fell into a deep depression because they were my life.
Can I ask, how did you get to the yeshiva?
How I got to the yeshiva.
You should mention your family, just imposing.
Yeah. My family came, my parents came from Galicia, namely Krakow, Tarnów, and the whole region. And most Polish Jews who came to France actually had come via Vienna or via Western Germany, namely Wiesbaden. Too much details I don't know, but I know that my grandfather had a cleaning, there was no dry cleaning shop, and in Wiesbaden. And during Kristallnacht, he went into one of the shuls and saved a whole lot of Sifrei Torah there, which he sent to Zurich. Then he went to Antwerp with my granny, on my wife's side, and he was taken away to Auschwitz. He was 75, and my granny was the last Jewish woman to have a burial in Antwerp.
What was the name?
Matzner.
And
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
the last to have a burial.
Yeah, that was in 40 or 41, I'm not sure. I went to see the grave, but it says that the last Jewish woman to have a burial. After that, people left Antwerp or were taken away or left.
And your grandfather was taken away?
My grandfather was taken away, yeah.
And he went to Auschwitz?
And sorry?
Where was he taken to?
He died in one of the camps, in Auschwitz. No, actually Auschwitz, yeah. And Auschwitz was not far from the place where he was born. Yeah, not far from. It's pure Galicia. Auschwitz is the heart of Galicia. My father. I'm skipping a little bit here because. My father, so that's Wiesbaden, and the whole family came then to a place called Karlsruhe, which I learned much later on was the seat of the worst Nazis, that is Karlsruhe, in Western Germany. And in 1933, they decided. My parents, they already had 4 children. They decided to cross the border to Strasbourg. That's where I was born, and 2 of my siblings were born in Strasbourg. And I was born in 1935, as I said. My memories of Strasbourg, except the constant rain, was very little. It seemed that my parents were under huge pressure because of having... my father had fought in the First World War, and he was a prisoner of war. He fought for Austria because it was the Austria-Hungarian Empire. He had to fight for us, like all the Galiciana Jews. And he had an episode, a very difficult time there in the Ukraine, in Kharkov. Anyway, he came, after the war, he married my late mom in a place called Uсть-Checadonia, not far from Galicia. That's already Czechoslovakia. Anyway, we landed up in France, and we were refugees. So the name there of the Jews, especially the Polish Jews, were
of your father.
Yes, my father. Yeah, my father. He was, like all Jews, always look at every Jew as super historical people or true historical people. I look myself, every other Jew, as history is really us.
Do you have recollection of your parents?
Yes, very much so, very much.
And your
very much so.
What happened during the war to all of them?
All of them, yeah. So eventually, in 1939, I say we went. Nobody went. We were taken down because of the dangers of the coming war now in 1939. We landed up in central west France, in the Bordeaux region, inland, deep inland, east of Bordeaux. It was called La Corrèze, Dordogne-Corrèze. I can draw you a map if you like. A beautiful, beautiful area. we landed in a place called Haute-Cour. And the municipality there, I remember we slept in a cowshed for a couple of weeks or months. I'll never know. It was. We slept there. We saw the cows there and everything. We got quite sick. That I remember very well. And my father had to go out to see what he could trade with the farmers around there, and he managed to keep alive. We got a little, I think we got some money from the municipality, from the French government as refugees. Eventually we got a stove, eventually we got beds, and then we were relocated. As I said, we were true refugees, meaning we kept on going from one galoot to the next, to the next, to the next. We landed up in a place called Rafaillac. Rafaillac, I remember as well, it was a very boring place, and but the school would not accept us there. So my father said, we need to go to school.
Was it because you were Jewish?
Probably. But Rafaillac was in Bourgade. It was a very small town, very small village, very small, one-horse thing. And I've got no fond memories of Rafaillac. I think it was a dump in every sense of the word. So eventually my father discovered there was a lot of refugees that come down to a place called Terrasson. Terrasson has got a big river, and it's already a small town, but it's already something. And Terrasson I remember very well. We started going to school there. The people liked us in Terrasson very much. And the children, my siblings, we all loved school. We were popular at school. We did very well. We got top marks, all of us. I loved reading. It was a success, the school was.
And the non-Jewish French children, they accepted you well?
They accepted us. Eventually, the change was inevitable. As the Vichy government now started becoming the government, now the influence, in other words, nefast, it was a very bad influence. We could see it virtually growing every day. And we started being beaten up, my brother and me. The girls went to school, they were very popular, and they came home crying often. I was beaten up regularly with my... And one day I fought back, and the teacher called me and he says, Joseph, you don't do things like that here. I fought back, and I really gave a... I was proud of myself. But anyway, we saw the change, and now began the rafle raids. And we still had enough good friends amongst the Gentiles who loved us, actually. And they told us, they warned us, ce soir il va y avoir une rafle. Tonight is going to be a raid. But we know a place where you can go and hide. So at the beginning we could still hide in attics. And the attics in that region were full of straw and nuts. It was a nut region, and all sorts of things, you know, the produce. But the effect was very bad on us because we had to go to school. We had to go to school. It was the law. It's the law. We had to go to school. And my father wanted us to go. So we went to school, but slowly our enthusiasm and our love of school became problematic. And eventually the boys at school used to say to me, you know, montre-moi ta main, show me your hands. Comment ça se fait que tu n'as pas de poils? How is it that you don't have hair here? Because you Jews, you are lazy, you never work, you make us work, you never work. All that was so strange to us, to any child, that it became, we felt alienation came in. And alienation, you know, people talk to them about anti-Semitism. They don't know. Anti-Semitism is only a kind of a blanket expression. It's an empty expression. But alienation is already more telling. Alienation became virtually total. And then slowly we had to go into hiding. As I said, to go, nobody went. We were taken. The first one to be taken was my uncle. Our uncle lived with us. By the way, a whole lot of other people lived with us. There was a professor, André Neher. He was a worldwide professor, very well known. Any French-speaking person will have heard of André Neher. He lived not far from us. We looked after him. I don't know, it was a lovely internal social thing. Another person lived, thought the most mysterious human being anybody has ever seen. His name was Shushani. He knew all the languages of the world to perfection. He knew everybody's telephone number, those who had telephoned. He knew everything. And he was a legend, and nobody could ever pinpoint him. If anybody has ever heard, if anybody hears this interview here, this little talk, any French speaker of my generation will have heard of Shushani. His first name I can't remember. Some said he was Sephardi, some said he was Ashkenazi, some say he was... Even here, I was once asked about if I ever heard of Mr. Shushani. I said, of course. He had his meals with us and everything, yeah. Okay, so the first one, my uncle. He was arrested by the Gestapo because he had the German passport. He came from Galicia, but eventually he lived in Berlin, then in Karlsruhe, and he had the German passport, and he taught German to the French boys. That's how he made a living. He was arrested, taken to the police station, beaten up very badly. He escaped. And he only told his whereabouts to one of his French pupils, one of the boys. He went into a forest. There are very thick forests there in the Corrèze. And that boy brought him food every day. But the police now came to arrest my father, and they said to him, they took him to the police station, they beat him up again, and they said, if your brother does not surrender, he's illegal here in France and everything, if he does not surrender, we take away you and your whole family.
Oy.
My father was not quite sure what it meant. It seemed it was totally, but anyway, take away with it. It was like a threat anyway. So he called that boy, and he said, "Please tell my brother, your teacher, what the police just said. That if." So my uncle went straight back to the police, and he was sent to Schlesien, to La Silésie, in the coal mines there. That was in the early 40s. It was 1940, I think, or 41. Don't ask me dates, I don't know that. And I think it was 40. Anyway, from there he was taken to one of the early camps, and then to Auschwitz. He knew exactly the policeman who came to arrest him. And he came to visit him after the war.
He survived.
My uncle survived, and he went to America. And the policeman's wife saw him coming. That was intéressant.
This is after the war.
After the war. And she went out, she banged the door behind her, and she said, "Il est mort, he died, he's dead." Yeah, okay. But what happened, so my father was released, and he went about his business, like all the refugees. They had to make a living, etc. By the way, there was a room there in the Hotel de l'Europe where we davened every day. Yeah, I mean, this is all heroic stuff. We davened every day, but eventually things turned very bad, even before the Germans came. And the next one that disappeared, just like that, vanished from the family, was our eldest brother. Just vanished. And like a silence descended upon the family.
Do you remember his name?
Wolf Matzner, yeah.
And you don't know what happened to him?
Nobody knew what happened to him, but he disappeared, not from the Gestapo. He was not arrested, but somebody came to fetch him, and it was the Boy Scouts. They tried to make a group of people to take them towards Switzerland, across into Switzerland. And that we learned after the war. My parents never spoke anymore about this episode. And then all of a sudden the same, I don't know who they were, I was too young, and anyway my parents didn't speak about those things. Eventually one of my sisters was taken in the same group. She also disappeared. I was the next. Why I was the next, I'll never know. There were other siblings, but I was the next. All of a sudden it was my turn to vanish, to disappear. I eventually landed in a place called Montentin. I'll never know where Montentin was. I always wanted to go back there and see, but it never worked. So I arrived in Montentin.
Do you remember saying goodbye to your parents? Or do you remember?
I said goodbye. They put me on the train at about 11:12 on a very cold November night, I think it was, and they gave me things to, a little packet here and there, what they could, and yeah,
And
they said,
Joseph, you were how old? You were
six or six-ish somewhere there, I don't know what.
And do you remember saying goodbye to your parents?
Yeah, I said goodbye, yes, I said goodbye, but I don't know, the whole atmosphere I'm trying to understand. The older I get, I try to make sense of all those things. There's no sense in them. I was too young or too disturbed, or whatever the case. I'm not going to dwell on this. I vanished, and I found myself in the Garden of Eden. That Montentin was a palace compared to where we lived. It was an estate. It was from some duke or some.
Did somebody collect you from the train?
Yeah. Somebody came to collect me there after 2 days and 2 nights.
On the train?
It was a very slow train. The train journey was Dante's descent into hell. That was already. It was surrealistic, but in the wrong way. We arrived there.
And were you by yourself?
By myself, yes.
And how did you know who to meet or who?
No, I did not. They picked me out. I waited there on the railway station, and somebody came. Viens, Joseph. They knew my name and everything. Viens, Joseph. And he took me, put me in a Citroën, an old Citroën. And we went into a magnificent orchard and forest, and too beautiful never. After the train journey, it was like landing up in Gan Eden.
Did you have food on the train, or how did you?
Well, they always tell a story about it was full of pekno, lots of peasants. And the peasants, they eat their bread and they cut it in a special way, and a big thing of cheese. And they offered me, Et mon petit, they were very friendly. So I saw goodness on the train, but something had sunk in my heart. Only people who went. Okay, we arrived there, and it's about.
On the train, did you wear a cap or?
No, you dare not wear a cap or anything. I don't know what I wore, I can't tell you. But definitely not a kippah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And maybe a little cap, or you don't remember?
Probably. Un béret, we had un béret, yes, un béret. And we arrived in Montentin. And I see there are lots of Jewish kids, boys and girls, young and older ones, 15, 16, it seemed to me. And all of a sudden, I'm put into the care of a big boy of, I don't know, maybe 16, maybe 17, all Jewish boys and girls. And so the big boys had to take care of the youngest one. He told me, c'est toi le plus jeune, you are the youngest here. So it was my claim to fame. And the Montentin was actually run by Hashomer Hatzair. And there was a kosher kitchen, and there was maybe 8-10 of all those 200 odd people, children that were kosher. So we only ate, I remember the table, it was a pekno table, a big heavy wood, very rough. And it was very friendly. But the non-frum boys also were more or less frum, but not kosher. They ate whatever they served. And there was a Shabbat, and I taught my grandchildren the song of the French Shalom Aleichem.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Can you sing a little bit?
Quand revient le sabbat, que disent les anges? Quand revient le sabbat, que disent les anges? Gloire à l'Éternel, chantons 1000 louanges. Gloire à l'Éternel, chantons mille louanges, chantons mille louanges. And they taught us some Chalutzik songs there. It was a new world. I discovered a new world. I kept on discovering new world. That's my claim to fame. And I absorbed all that. It became my life. You know, what you live, that's your life. I thought I would stay there forever. I still longed after my family, but the picture of my family started fading because I was so occupied that from time to time I couldn't sleep because I thought, where is my little sister, where is my brother? The French-speaking ones, the others spoke German, also French, and I was very close to Oscar and to Dora, my little sister, and but I was, again, la vie me pousse. The life pushes you. You can't stay behind. So I thought I would stay there forever. That's what young kid thinks. And then all of a sudden, the Madrid brought us onto the field. There, I remember, beautiful orchard, beautiful. And he started giving us a little talk. He said, we were very happy here, we are very happy, but unfortunately now we have got to disperse, we've got to scatter around, but we hope you will be happy, we've got new places for you, and so on. So I was again taken onto a train, and again this old world collapsed and nothing in view. I traveled also a long time, and this time I arrived in Lourdes. I didn't know what Lourdes was, my geography, although it was quite good, even by then it was still good, but I knew the Pyrenees Mountains, and there they were in front of me, beautiful. And so, but this time I'm accosted by a priest and a nun, by not a how do you say, un prêtre, yeah. And they walk with me, and I see in front of me a wide prospect, a wide thing, and we walk down, and we pass the basilica, a church flanked by huge boulders of the Pyrenees Mountains, and surrounded, not a big, but La Basilique, it was the big church there. We walked there from there, and we arrive at a huge yellowish house, one story, a ground floor. And the first thing that struck me was only windows there, long windows from almost from the ground to. And I arrived there, and like a cold wind hit me, you know. These are the feelings I can describe now, you know, but at the time it was devastating, you know, the coldness, the cold. I arrived there, the first thing I see, beds, about 100 beds, a sea of beds. And the nun says to me, by the way, I had to change my name to José, or José, I think José. And from Matzner, I had to be Mazo. José, rappelle-toi, ton lit c'est ici. Your bed is here. Never found a bed for 3 years. My bed was a nightmare. The food, I keep on telling the story. What was the food in the convent? It was usually potato, carrots, and Zwiebelach. You know what Zwiebelach are? Onions, you know, cooked onions on top. I don't think I ever ate a full plate. I don't think so. I escaped once there. I took bread and I mashed it, put it in my pocket, and I ran away. Needless to tell you, I quickly came back. It's a whole story I won't go into. But anyway, the rest of my family eventually...
Why did you run away? Because...
I thought you can just run away. I don't know. I don't know what was in my mind.
And why did you come back?
Because there was nowhere to go. It was the Pyrenees Mountains. There was nothing. You got lost there.
Were you punished when you came back? Were they cross with you?
Nobody ever noticed it. Because the isolation, I lived on a planet X. And so, okay, I spent a long time there.
Did
Eventually,
the nuns ever come to you or speak to you? Or
hardly ever.
And the priests?
In the 3 years that I was there, I had to attend the catechism every day, and I had to go to, I had to walk with the other boys to the basilica, and all I remember from the basilica is it was like a ghost, full of shining things. Everything was gold and gold color and dark and things. It was frightening, really. And I remember I fainted a few times there, you know, and I picked myself up.
And during the day, did they have classes that you had to
There were
take?
classes, but I was absent-minded completely. So that is also, I didn't benefit anything from there.
Did you make friends with the other boys?
Eventually, I don't know, I took part in sports things. And I can tell you, in athletics, I beat every other. So everybody wanted me to be in their camp, so I began this life in sport. And then they discovered that I could sing, because I used to hum to myself all day long. And so I became a bit of a star. And I remember all the songs there. My wife always says to me, sing the monk, one of the songs there.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Can you sing it?
Quatre murs et un toit. Ah, si j'avais tout ça pour moi, je serais bien plus riche qu'un roi. If I only had 4 walls and a ceiling, I would be richer than a king. Yeah, so eventually you get used to that kind of life as well.
Can I ask, did you know there were other Jewish boys there as well?
No.
You never knew?
No.
And you never
I remembered...
Did the boys know that you were Jewish?
No, nobody knew I was Joseph, but I can't remember that thing. I preferred remembering things, attractive things. The town was very attractive, beautiful buildings. The most beautiful thing in the town was the river. Green, fresh water. You have never seen anything like that. Le Gave de Pau est actually greenish turquoise waters. Transparent, totally magnificent. Another episode, there was next to eventually the convent put the bigger boys, already became bigger, into a hotel, I remember, by the river. And next to the hotel was a German storehouse. And one day the boy said to me, you know, you are a fast runner. We want you to go and pin some potatoes there. I went there and ran there. I didn't know any danger, nothing, you know. Just ran there. I filled my pockets with potatoes, came back, and they started putting them on the stove, the winter stove, and they had chips. We had chips. No, okay, so I was thinking of my family, and eventually it faded away. Everything became blurred. Because my only way of thinking was songs and houses and neutral things, you know.
Can I ask, Joseph, did you think, why is this happening to me? Why am I?
I'd never asked myself. So that's natural.
From my parents, why this is happening?
No. I thought I was different from all other boys, and I probably don't deserve parents. I probably don't deserve. I was trying to come to terms. It's a big thing to say, but as in a child, it's. You don't know what you do. It happens by itself. So I began to look, to do my hair nicely and to look in the jewelry. It was full of jewelry. Every shop there was a jewelry shop. It was a very attractive town thing. What else can I tell you? I watched other people's lives, and I felt I live on planet X, and look how beautiful life is. It's another. I can't answer these questions. I don't think a psychologist could even answer these questions.
Did you manage to make friends with any of the other boys?
I've made friends. Yeah, by the way, I managed to get a friend, one of those friends, to escape with me. And he got cold feet, and he said, "No, José, we must go back." He said, "What are my parents going to tell me when I come home?" Yeah. And I heard the talk all day long. The other boys was, "My father is lawyer, my father has horses, my father this, my father that." So I thought, I don't belong to any of these things. I didn't put it into words, but I felt. So I didn't start, something started to, I remember a few Yiddish words, which I was scared to pronounce. I remember Shema Yisrael.
Did you say it at night, Shema Yisrael? Or?
No, I was scared to say it, no. And you know what, you feel total alienation, you do that. But those words were precious to me, you know. I think they were precious to me. And then I felt maybe I'm superior to everybody. From thinking I'm totally below everybody, then I thought, maybe, who knows? And anyway, life carried on like that. I did not know in the meantime that my whole family had been farmed out to a hiding place, by whom I'll never know. And that is such a tragedy that I never knew what was putting, but let me just finish, come to some sort of conclusion. After the convent, I was taken to that Catholic family where they had just adored me.
And who took you to the family?
I have no idea. They have no idea.
And why did they choose you to go?
They knew of my whereabouts. It was already late into the war, and they knew where every child was placed. Somebody knew.
This must have been from the underground.
From the underground, yes.
Scouts.
But who, what,
The
how,
Scouts.
I'll never know.
The Scouts, the Jewish.
It's probably the Boy Scouts, les éclaireurs juifs de France.
The Jewish.
Yeah, they did the rescuing. They hid the hiding places they found, and they helped the families, the Catholic family that took me in. They were actually given, how did they call it at the time? Well, they were given more bread. They had the coupons.
Coupons.
Yeah, and they benefited from it. Yeah, but then they adored me.
And do you remember their names? The family's name?
No,
But they were very kind to you.
very kind. What do you
Did they
mean
have
kind?
children? Did they have any?
Yeah, their children, grandchildren, the children and the grandchildren, they were dreaming about me. They came there and they tucked me in every night. I was a ganzer Mensch, you know, I was all of a sudden somebody. So,
And how old were you now when you went?
I'll never know. I think I must have been at least 8, probably 9, I don't know. And I saw a world of love and things. I couldn't get it.
And was this near the monastery where you went?
No, that was already in. That somewhere. That was in Ney, N-A-Y-E-S. Yeah, that's not far from the Légion étrangère. And and anyway, one fine morning, somebody knocks at the door. A young girl comes. A young girl, I imagine she must have been only 16, 17 the most. And she has a long chat with a granny. I was by the granny. And they talk and they talk and they talk. And eventually, the granny says to me, José, tu vas avec la jeune fille? Are you going to go with that girl? And I said, no. Mm-hmm. And then I said, but I don't know what she said, I can't remember the whole discussion, but anyway, I went.
How long did you stay with this family?
I'll never know. I think about 6 months to a year, I'm not sure.
And did you go to school in this time?
No, nix. I couldn't go because they would know I'm Jewish. I think so. Unfortunately, the reason why I was reluctant to be interviewed is because I don't have enough solid details.
No, it's hard to.
I can't. Yeah, but anyway, we arrived at the railway station.
So you went with the girl?
Yeah, I went with the girl, and lo and behold, there is another 6 children. And we didn't know each other at all. And we all cried bitterly because they also took a shine to the families where they were.
And you didn't want to leave? We
didn't want to leave. None of us. And that girl, I remember, she went totally. She was running to buy us chocolates and things. And
how did she convince you to go?
She said, "Tu vas rentrer chez tes parents. You going back to your parents." And I was scared of that. I didn't know. You know, it was a strange thing. I can't put it into words. Anyway, so we are on the train, and again everybody one started crying, and all started crying. And it was, and again it was my fate. I was the last one to descend from the train, because others had gone to other areas, to those who had parents, because some, I don't know, many didn't have any more parents, but the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, they knew the situation, and they made arrangements. Anyway, I pitch up in Terrasson, and I see I see my parents, and I took it with such sadness that I saw on their faces that it actually, anyway, they came and they kissed me and they embraced me, and we went into an old taxi and we went home, and I recognized.
When you saw your parents, how was your feeling when you saw them?
Impossible to describe. Impossible to describe, because I had so many attachments on the way.
But did you recognize them?
Yeah, I recognize. Yeah.
And did you cry? Do you remember if you cried or?
No, I cried later, yeah. But at the time I was like stunned, stunned.
And your parents?
Because don't forget, my father already started growing his beard again, which he had to shave completely. And I had never seen a bearded people till now. So that was... and my father wore an old jacket, which I remembered, it was a heavy jacket like that. And I don't know, everything, I had seen already nice clothes, nice this, so I couldn't, it was difficult. And so eventually I arrived shortly before the thing was, before the armistice, before the end of the war. And I saw the end of the war being celebrated there. And half the population got drunk, and again music and loud. All those things hit us, all of us. And by the way, I didn't see, I saw my siblings, I call them the French siblings, who were born in Strasbourg. And then I only saw the eldest sister. But two sisters and my older brother were absent. And they came back after me. And to cut a long story...
How was your emotion when you saw your siblings? Because that must have been very...
Nobody can describe this kind of thing. If anybody even tried, they wouldn't. I don't think words are not... it's totally irrelevant. Because all of us now, we looked outwardly. And I saw the big fireworks, and to cut a long story short, I took a liking to fishing. I saw fishermen there, and I watched them. There was a river in front of the house there. There was a garden, and I saw the gardener, Monsieur Dubuisson, an old man like that with a big moustache, like from the First World War, and so I was fascinated by what I saw. But there was something which was totally lacking. I had seen, and I remembered all those Jews, all those Eden from Galicia. The one was a tailor. The one was all sorts of trades. And they all davened together there. And I kept on asking, mais où est Monsieur Tratner? Où est Monsieur... can't remember the names, I still know the names. Il est mort. Il est parti. He went away. Oui, tu peux le voir, il est malade. And so I realized, not in the form of realization, but it goes into your cells, into the DNA. Your identity begins to... It's all recorded in the... Somebody told me that, what you say is right. It's recorded in the cells.
Like also the subconscious, it goes into the...
Yeah, the subconscious is too vague. It goes into the cells, he says, into the blood cells.
And Joseph, did
So you can't really talk
can I
about
ask,
these
did
things.
Did your parents ask you how was it, or did they ask you what was it like when you were in the convent, or did your siblings ask you?
Nobody asked me. They all had my siblings all had more or less the same thing, except that there were two. There were always my French brother and French sister. They were in Rion. I think that was by Lyon. That was quite far away. Yeah, they talked about Lyon always.
Did you speak about the convent with your? Did you speak to your siblings or your parents about the convent?
I think that was the tragedy after the war. We were all too shaken because we were happy when we came to Terrasson, and a big chunk of our life there was no continuity.
And one brother never told his wife, and when he passed away, she never even knew he had been in a camp.
My brother passed away 3 years ago. 3 years ago. He never told his wife.
And she never asked?
So the biggest, strangest thing of all strange things ever is, and I think that's the French fully, I don't know if the other countries are the same. Nobody ever talked. In my family, definitely not. There was no change, no exchange of experience.
But your parents never asked you, how was it, or?
No, my parents were very frum. They themselves had undergone a tremendous thing, but now is not the place.
You can mention.
Well, my father saw all his friends being shot, you know, and then the few remnants went on a train that went to Megève, because there was a rumor that whatever the Italians retook from France was better, was safe. He arrived there on the train, and the whole train was surrounded by Germans. And that was supposed to be one of the last trains from France to go to Auschwitz, to go to Drancy, and to... only historians can tell you more about it. I don't know anything about it. And the Italians surrounded the trains, and they said, this train is not leaving.
And he was on the train?
And they fought, they had apparently a fight with the Germans, and the Italian army now, whatever it was, they did not allow the train to leave, and they took all the refugees down from the train, and they invited them, and they organized them and gave them food and everything.
And your father was on the train?
Yeah.
And your mother, where was she?
My elder sister never wanted to leave the parents, and she eventually they were both taken to the used to call it the Platz, the Umsalzplatz, something like that, to à la Place, to the main square of that little town, and. The few Jews that were left, the Germans, this time it was not the Gestapo, it was the Germans. And so my sister, she spoke French, German, because she was born in Karlsruhe. And she said to the German soldier next to her, can we go home, please, to fetch a few belongings? Because they came down with nothing. And they had a little palaver there, and they said yes, and they accompanied my mother and my sister to the house on the 3rd floor. And they were so nervous, and they looked at everything and said this, that, and you know, like women always look for what dress, what things. In the meantime, when they came down, they didn't realize, but the two German soldiers that left. Yeah. All the people were taken to whatever camp, and one, Monsieur Chayovitz, came back, and I think the tailor also survived, but we never saw him. Yeah. And yeah,
it's a miracle. They just left.
Just left, yeah.
And your mother and your sister stayed?
Came, and they quickly ran back. There was a big portal. I don't know, you don't see this kind of a big, thick wooden portal. And I don't know how long later after that the others were taken away. A German came and said, Frau Matzner and Esther Matzner, kommen Sie runter sofort, come down immediately or we burn the house down. They stayed put. Never saw the soldiers or the thing again. Yeah. Okay, so what else can I tell you? What can't I tell?
Did they stay there for the remainder of the war?
Yeah. It was already more towards the end of the war, I think. It was a bit, I don't know the years, could have been the end of 44, but probably I think it was, I remember when I was in Lourdes, I already saw the German army retreating. There was a huge amount, they were walking with their jackets open and no guns, but that was in the Pyrenees, because the communist Spaniards fought there together with the FFE, with the French underground, and I can't tell you more details. My problem is I wish to know more. I wish to understand more, but it's not likely to happen. Not likely to happen. So I really appreciate our little talk, and yeah, it's.
And can I just ask, Joseph, because it's unbelievable, the miracles, what happened to your family.
Yeah.
Was the whole family survived?
The whole family survived.
That is very, very unique.
Yeah.
There were whole towns in France where the whole town was honoured.
Yeah. There were good people in France.
Did they get Hasidei Motalam? Did people from the town receive righteous amongst the nations?
Not particularly that town.
I don't know, maybe, I don't think so. I don't think so. I remember there was an old woman in Terrasson. She used to come, the minute she heard a raid, she came running, chuchotait, she spoke in a low voice, and we knew. And she was the first one to take us up in the attic. No, there were some good people, and I've got very fond memories of quite a number of people. But I must say, the monks and in Lourdes, no, it was
cold, very cold.
Cold.
Impersonal, very impersonal.
Yeah. You know what, Doctor, I would like to take this opportunity to say what upsets me and my generation is the betrayal of all this history at the moment. Through I said the left, but to me it's the most treacherous thing that's happening now, that we would never in a million expect. And just if somebody hears, if they take out, there's too much treachery, too much admiration for the non-Jewish world.
In Israel, especially, you mean Israel?
Yeah, and I hope we don't live to regret it. That's all, because it's okay. I've said my words. That's all I want to say.
But can I just ask, Joseph, your family, did everybody remain religious after the war?
Yeah, we all remained. I was always into things, but I had learned so much in the yeshivas. I went in 2 yeshivas, and I'd seen so many wonderful people, survivors, the Rabbonim, one of them Rabbi Rutenberg. One day I heard a voice. I was already we had to be in bed, the young ones, by 8 o'clock, 8:30, and I heard a beautiful voice from downstairs, from the Beit HaMidrash, learning till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and I got out of bed and I went downstairs. It was Rabbi Rutenberg. He learned with Gemara Nigen, the tradition. It was something incredible. And I saw, this. And then a certain Rabbi Horowitz, who taught us a song in this, we saw people, I call them flight by night, but there were times when I wanted to throw away my kippah, my thing, and all those things happened to us. And not to my brother. My brother remained steadfast, my two brothers. It affected my sisters more. But I had seen too much glory,
Yeah. And
that I felt I can't betray that glory. It's not right.
And your parents remained very frum?
Always very frum. Always very frum. And the one sentence I remembered in the convent was my mother always saying, it is Moshiach's Zeiten, it is Messianic times.
So Joseph, that's and that kept you. That kept you. You remember?
Yeah. Well, as I said, either I was in the dumps. I thought I am Planet X, unseen forever, undiscovered forever. Or then I realized maybe they've got. Maybe I've got something that they know, and that Moshiach Satan was like a deep secret in me. I've got a secret that they don't have.
And can I ask, if I have to ask you, what message do you give to your children and grandchildren from what you've experienced? And for the future?
Yeah, my message is never a message in one sentence. It's an attitude. The attitude is we must become more and more Jewish, not less and less. There are good people amongst the nations of the world, which all of us, in my family at least, have experienced. Unfortunately, it didn't last long because the world has to turn. They feel they have to turn against us, fine, but they can ignore. The time has come to ignore the rest of the world. Simply to ignore. I'll give you an example. The last time I went to Europe to visit my late brother, the eldest brother, I traveled in the train in Lausanne. Lausanne is the hotbed of chauvinism, of nationalism, but that's fine. So I'm in the train and I'm, I think, davening or doing something, and a big guy comes wrapped in the old-fashioned with like they used to use the intellectuals with a big head on the sides, stilted like that, and a big cape, and he watches me. And he says to me, vous êtes juif, naturellement, you are Jewish. I said, mais oui, of course. And he said, I would like you to know that I am the head of the anti-Semitic movement here in Lausanne. So I said to him, I stood up, I said, enchanté, monsieur. So nice to meet you, carry on, I said. And those words impressed myself. Let the world be anti-Semitic, but don't join them. Because Yeah, I've said it all. I mean,
what did he? How did he react when you said that to him? How did
I
he
was
react?
proud of myself.
But how did he react?
He went and sat down, never said another word.
Didn't say a word.
Yeah, I said to him, carry on, mais continuez, monsieur. What?
And Joseph, there we have Medinat Israel, that we have our own country, that we have a state of Israel.
Well, this is a food for thought. It's an amazing story. It's, you know, I've always said the most important film that they ever showed here in South Africa was the Jewish Brigade. It was the story of the 3 years between the end of the war and because that's when I saw personally as a child the ineffable, the unforgettable greatness of the Jewish people.
You witnessed the Medinat Israel.
And of course Medinat Israel, it was the year of my bar mitzvah. And I saw all the Yidden, the refugees, they were standing there, and the counts.
At the United Nations.
Nobody dared speak. And there was a big radio like that, crackling like mad, but everybody like that, it was, charge still, don't make a noise. So we saw all those things. And it's so obvious that we dare not. This is sacred stuff, I'm telling you. I'm sure all the people you interviewed must have told you, but this is sacred. You cannot desecrate this.
I couldn't agree more. Joseph, I want to thank you. Just 1 minute, Joseph. I'm so grateful to you. 1 minute.
Your visit was inattendu. Wow. It was totally...
So, Joseph, I am so grateful to you. There are no words. Really, there are no words to thank you. Ein milim, there are no words. Coming to South Africa just to meet you has been it's been so wonderful. And you are an icon. You are so special. And I must tell you, I am so overwhelmed by your story, by your imana, but with your family, miracles. I'm witnessing history, and I'm witnessing somebody who experienced really miracles. And you should just have mazel and brocha at Mevesrim in good health. And it's been the greatest honor and privilege. Really, I'm so overwhelmed, and I'm so grateful to you. I am extremely grateful to you, and thank you.
What you are doing is very special as well. What you are doing.
I am overwhelmed by you. You're one of the great people.
Not really, but it's really, I'm so grateful to you, and you should just have all of Hashem's blessings.
You know what the Baal Shem Tov says? He says, when you look at the Jew, you see not the Jew, but that's wrong. When you look at a star, and it's a tiny star, you go to your microscope and you see it's magnificent. When I see another Yid like you, it's a star.
Well, it's the other way around. Thank you so much. Joseph, when you were in the yeshiva, you met with Rabbi Eli Munk?
I saw Rabbi Eli Munk. I admired him. He was the most admirable person. First of all, externally, he was dressed like a prince. He was impeccably dressed always, and he had a princely appearance. And it was on Tisha B'Av. My second Tisha B'Av in Exelbein, the yeshiva. He addressed us. We were all sitting on the floor, and Rabbi Eli Munk explained to us one of the keynote, one of the dirges, one of the things. Every word was a pearl. Every word was a pearl. Then he addressed us once in the shul there, and I can't remember that episode too well, but he was definitely one of the great people we saw. And he spoke an impeccable French, and much, much later I discovered he had written a commentary on the Torah, And whenever I open that commentary that it was called the Call of the Torah, I see his face. Yeah. And Rabbi Rothenberg's face also I remember.
And
I was a person who remembered.
you mentioned that there was somebody who was a philosopher in the Communist Party.
Oh yes, yes. It was Emmanuel Levinas. He was one of the great teachers of philosophy in the Sorbonne. And I saw him in the yeshiva the 1 July, and he was always walking in the yeshiva with short pants and walking through the forest and through the alleyways of the yeshiva, and with a notebook. So the man was full of ideas. I didn't realize at the time, but he was taking notes all the time. And he became friendly with the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Chaikin, who was the youngest pupil of the Chofetz Chaim. And he must have seen something there. He must have had a spark of greatness. And then he decided that everything degenerates, including communism, except the Torah. And now he decided to become the champion of Torah and to see the world via our tradition, via the Midrashim, via the Gemorahs. And he wrote a short book called 4 Essays. And he uses his incredible philosophical knowledge, and he compares it, and he also, of course, the social work, the employer-employee situation, and the whole social work and the unrest, he sees it with new eyes, through the eyes of the ideal and the eyes of the real. And he prefers the ideal to the real, because the real is degeneration. I was extremely lucky to see all those people, thanks to that little town Aix-les-Bains, which remains engraved in my mind forever. It has become a historical place. When I saw Aix-les-Bains last, which was 2 days ago, sorry, it was just a destination, a touristic destination. To me, it was a spiritual destination, and where I discovered that there is something above what goes on here in this world. It looks so small, but the Jewish people, each one is a star to be looked at with a stargazer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.